quoted that the sole reason for any makeup, and particularly character makeup, is not to proclaim the skills of the artist or the actor, but to help tell the story. Tom Savin once said, "My feeling is that CGI is better. It used to be a challenge to try and create what was in the script, but now anything you can imagine can be created on screen." The videos you just saw was some of my SFX makeup that I actually do. As a self-taught makeup artist, I thought I could take this dissertation as a part of a learning experience, more for the fact being that I didn't actually know the history of makeup. I didn't know the history of CGI. There is so much I've learned. I've learned the basics of how makeup started, the amazing tricks in Phantom of the Opera, when he pinned back his nose. I got to see how much makeup has advanced and how such basic techniques in the 1980s, 1970s was so amazing and so effective in film that the techniques we have now are beyond that. It's even more amazing. There's so much you can do. There's so much you can think about and then have it created either with prosthetics, with makeup, or get a really good editor and have it edited in the studio, have it like constructed, do all the face, how they want the movement and all that, and then put it into post and have that monster created in a couple of days. So in a sense, my main reason I decided to pick this topic was because I have heard so many debates that have happened between SFX and VFX, and I thought it'd be an amazing experience for me as well to find out the histories of both and see their developments and see how well they work together within film. I decided to actually do an experiment. I had the chance to actually do a live demon org monster. It was an experiment I decided to pick because it allowed me to catch people's reactions. It allowed me to see human interaction with monsters in their costume. I decided to do it in the O2 just because it was a lot of different ethnicities, ages, and it was very well placed because I found it allowed me to have so many people come up to me, so many people be interested. A lot of what you advertise and stuff like that. Within that, I also looked at primary and secondary research. Because this topic has been spoken about a few times before, there's essays, there's video interviews. A lot of my research was done on secondary. However, with my primary research, I did have the chance to obviously interview people of the public. I got interviews with my editor that actually did the monster opinions on it, because I thought where my question is aimed at the audience's views, I felt my research for my primary had to be more aimed at the audience, so the public, because in the sense of I need to get their opinions. So this next clip is the official VFX monster that my editor created. He based it on a drawing that I gave him. So the next few clips are just of my experiment. I just want to say that when writing the questions for my experiment, I decided to look into the Uncanny Valley theory, as I decided the theory would help me when answering my dissertation question. I also used the theory to write some of my questions.
Yeah. See, when you see people dressed up in costumes and then when they do it on computer, what do you think looks more realistic?
I think usually you see it better on television or on cinema because you're not got that very close experience, and they've got lighting and everything, obviously, because that would play an effect. Whereas in actual daylight, you can,
So you prefer the computerized aspect then, the digital aspect of when it comes to
I would say so.
What's your first impression about him?
Pretty creepy. I saw you before and I thought it was your actual face.
Everyone said this thing.
So I didn't want to comment and or stare too much.
It's cool, man.
Yeah.
And do you think he looks realistic?
From a distance it does, and pretty close up it does too.
And would you say you prefer the VFX monsters and creatures compared to someone dressed up in a special effects outfit and costume?
Personally, I like the balance between the two. I'm more of a VFX guy, but it works really well now, so I'd go for SFX.
Perfect.
And when you normally go see movies, do you like point out like the SFX ones and know, but like that looks really fake or that looks too realistic?
Not really. I look at the whole film rather than just certain bits.
Okay, so what's your first impression of him?
Yeah, I like the outfit, I like the makeup, the whole costume, pretty unique. So I like it.
Do you think it looks realistic? Like,
It's good, but realistic, I wouldn't say. But through a camera, yes, people wouldn't be able to tell. But if you see in real life, you can just tell.
in motion pictures, do you prefer to see like SFX, like prosthetics and stuff like that, or do you prefer the VFX technique?
SFX. Yeah, definitely. The more, I guess, the whole Star Wars thing as well. How the original Star Wars, they're all like man-made, they're not done through computer. I personally find that to be better. It looks more real through camera than when you do it digitally. Yeah. It doesn't have the same feel.
And do you think there's too many movies now that use VFX technique?
Pretty much a lot. Yeah. Pretty much the majority right now nowadays, they're all, unfortunately.
What's your first impression once you see him?
I mean,
It's impressive.
it is impressive. I mean, I wasn't scared, but that's because you sounded nice.
Oh.
But without the voice, I would have been scared.
Amazing. And when you normally go to a movie, do you prefer to see like characters like all done with like the makeup, the costume, or do you prefer to see them all done digitally?
I would say probably more often you see them digitally, so I guess that's what I would be more used to, but I think this would probably be more effective if it was like all done like properly, yeah.
I've seen like
Yeah,
Batman
mine's
movies,
going
the
blank.
Two-Face, but I don't know how they did
Yeah,
that.
that's all
That was
makeup.
all
That was all
Is that,
makeup.
see, yeah, I like that.
Okay,
That
yes,
was,
that
that was
was
terrifying.
effective.
Yeah, maybe makeup.
And do you think movies now have too much like everything done on computer? Like you see loads of like flying spaceships, you see loads of monsters done on computer and stuff like that.
I do think that like, I mean, I suppose it's like it can be effective, but I think that like there is a lot of it to the point where it just gets a bit like too far-fetched.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always nice to have some like realness to it and like make it a bit more like it could happen.
So what's your first impression of him?
It's a little bit scary. I didn't want to look twice because I thought if he really looks like that, it's going to make him feel bad.
And normally when you go to the cinema, do you prefer to see like monsters and creatures done on computer, or do you prefer the whole makeup?
Like that.
The makeup
Yeah.
done, Do you think there's two movies now that look too fake with all the special effects
I
and
do. I
that?
think you can see when it's all done digitally. It's good to see like human flesh somewhere in the mix.
Yeah.
Do you think it looks more realistic sometimes? A realistic feel?
I think so, yeah, because he's got real eyes kind of looking out from behind that horrible nose.
Okay, so what's your first impression of him?
I think it looks good. I think it looks really it looks awesome. Man. I think it looks really kind of scary, yeah.
And when you go to the movies, do you prefer to see stuff done like with all the prosthetics, the costumes all made, or do you prefer all it done on computer?
I think the costumes, because computers, you don't really get the same kind of feel for it. Like, I think the technology is good, but we're not quite there yet. I feel like you can still see it. Like, you can still see like CGI and things like that, rather than you can tell if a man's in costume like Freddy Krueger or people like that. And I much prefer that kind of feel rather than all this kind of CGI kind of special effects.
So do you think CGI sometimes can look too fake?
Yeah.
Definitely. And when you see someone like in costume, do you think it gets to the point when they look too real, it's a bit creepy? Or do you prefer that?
I prefer that. I prefer that because you get the scare factor more. And that's what I'm saying, like, with the films that they're bringing out today, like paranormal and all these kind of films, they more do it with computer technology, whereas back in the day it was like Freddy and Jason, and those are all costumes, and them films set the pace for the films of today, and those are the real scary films.
And normally when you go to the movies, do you prefer to see all the monsters and creatures done with like costumes, the makeup, or do you prefer it all to be done on computer?
It really depends on how well it's been made. I mean, looking at this, it's so well made, so right now I'd rather actually see it like this, but if it was like a film like Star Wars or something, then no, it should be made like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if it was like Avatar, that has to be like computerized. Yeah.
Do you think there's too many movies now that it's too based on computer and it's a little bit fake?
Most definitely. The talent's gone now, so the talent's behind the computer screen rather than in makeup, so yeah.
So you'd say that this looks more realistic when it's done in film?
So much more realistic, so much cooler as well, so much more to talk about rather than the effects. This is talent.
So what's your first impression of him?
Scary. Yeah, very.
Yeah, pretty terrifying. I didn't know what to expect. I was thinking,
is it
real
real?
or is that
yeah.
Don't worry, you're running up to people all the day. When you go to movies, do you prefer stuff to be done with all the makeup and the costumes, or do you prefer it all to be done on computer?
It depends what type of film, and also as long as it's very convincing, that's the most important thing, I believe.
I think 50-50 for me. I think a lot, well actually 60% has to be makeup, and then it's always nice to get the stuff that you can't reach via prosthetics and makeup with CGI.
Amazing. Do you think there's too many movies now that have loads of like CGI and all the effects done?
Well, it would be difficult to do a futuristic film without CGI, so I suppose it's necessary to have them in certain situations. Otherwise, just stick with the more simple stuff, I suppose, with the prosthetics and the makeup type stuff.
Do you think it looks too fake sometimes though?
What, CGI or makeup?
CGI.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it has to be in the right situation.
That's why I think 60% needs to be makeup.
Well, yes, I suppose.
I just like makeup.
It's a debate that can go on forever, so yeah.
And have you ever seen like a character where it looks too real, even though it's all done with like CGI and prosthetics, that it looks a bit creepy? The fact that it looks that real?
I'm sure there are films where it's been pretty creepy because it's like, oh wow, that's pretty real. But those are the ones when you choose to forget because you're like, well, that was overwhelming.
Yeah. Amazing. So, what's your first impression of him?
He's a good-looking guy. You're always going to stare at him. You see, from afar, you think there's something slightly odd about him, and then when you get close, you know there's something odd about him.
And normally, when you go to the movies, do you prefer to see all the characters done with all the makeup and the costumes, or do you prefer it all to be done on computer?
Makeup.
Do you think it looks more realistic?
It just adds more to it, doesn't it? It's a bit more, not realistic, but it's more old school, rather than CGI.
Fair. And do you think there's too many movies now that have got too many of the CGI and the VFX?
I think there's room for everything. We've got 200 channels. Choose which one you want to watch.
So when you normally go to see movies, do you prefer it all to be done like that though?
Well, oh absolutely, you know.
Half and half.
Makeup's good, but you know, there are clearly bits that you can't do with makeup, and that's when you've got to involve something else.
That is very true. So that was just a few clips of the interviews I did around the O2. However, some of them had to be cut short. My overall opinion when seeing all the interviews was that a lot of the public thought that SFX was so much more effective. However, some of the people did say the technology is good, but we're not there yet. That proves to show that they feel that although we are advancing very quickly, we just haven't hit that mark where VFX can just be used by itself. Someone did say they preferred 60-40, so 60% makeup and 40% VFX. I thought that was quite a good mix of how makeup would be used a lot more, where the things that we weren't able to do with makeup, we could then add it in post with VFX. A lot of people did say the balance between the two is really good. One of the things that did pop up a lot was that they preferred the SFX because of the horror. They like a lot of horror to be used with all the makeup and all the gore. That overall opinion was to me that both of them need to be combined together because there is a limit that SFX can go to. There's so much that we can hand make till it gets incredibly hard to probably do movement and stuff like that. Whereas in VFX, we can all have it done in post-production. Within my experiment, I got some people's reaction shots of when they first saw the monster. So here are just a few little cutaways of people first seeing him and their first reactions when they interact with him.
I'll tell you his view.
I'm a train driver. I really wish I had that on.
Does it look realistic?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Fucking over. Fucking over. No, that's very scary still.
That is the best reaction I've seen.